first question I like to start with is for those who went to college per se and just get a business degree and didn't specifically go to become a lawyer or a doctor, what advice can you give them to help them find a career they can actually grow?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is like a two-part answer to this one part question, right? Like, how do you find your career if you're not a lawyer, doctor, have a specific major that's, going into a professional career somehow? And most importantly, what if you find out at the end of school, you spent all this money and you hate what you're doing now? Maybe you got into it and you want to switch, right? So I think the two things of that is looking at college, the whole purpose of college in general, and then figuring out how to pivot. So college in general, I think people go into it because it's just the next step. We are told that we go to high school, we go to college, we graduate, we work a job. And when you look at like high school, the way it's set up, it's like high schools were created so you would kind of be like a factory worker. When they ring the bells, it's like you're going to the next thing, the next job, right? And you just learn all of this basic stuff that isn't really beneficial in the real world. Like you're not going to be using most of the information, right? So what you have to look at college and high school as, the only skill that you really need to learn is how to learn. If you can learn how to learn, you can essentially learn anything. That's what the knowledge gap is. If you want to be successful, you just have to go and figure out how to get it. So all you need to do is learn how to learn, right? So instead of, in college being on your phone in a classroom like I used to do in college, pay attention to how the speaker is speaking. Are they good? Are they bad? How are they setting up the information? Does it make sense? Learn what they're doing well, learn what they're not doing well, because at some point you might need those skills, right? Learn hard math, not because you'll ever use it if you have to take the stinking class. If you're going to take a math class and you have to use it or have to take it in order to graduate, well, learn how to do it because you're training your brain to learn hard stuff. Don't give up. Don't cheat. That's a huge problem. People cheat all the time, off of whoever, their neighbor, and online. And when you take an online test, you can Google everything, which, for some of those basic classes, I totally understand why people do that because it's a waste of knowledge. It's like, oh, I'm not going to use this. Why do I need to, learn it? It's about the principle really, because, in real life, it is true that you can Google most things. And that's actually how you can do a lot, like learn a lot, is you Google lots of things, which is why like college kind of in a way doesn't make much sense, nowadays. I bet you, I was thinking about doing a documentary on it actually, of going into classrooms, recording what they teach and then Googling it all. And it's just free everywhere. Like that's kind of weird, right? Why they charge so much for that. But anyway, so college, the skill you're trying to learn is how to learn. And the other skill that you need is networking. That's it. If people like you, they'll hire you. If you're able to learn, they'll hire you. And so college is a tool. So whatever major you're getting, pick the one that's most difficult that most people can't do. Because if you can, in college, learn some skills that you can actually market for yourself later, or they're good background knowledge, that's great. So if you've got those two skills of how to learn and network, right? It's really just like what lines up with your purpose, right? And that means you got to figure out your purpose first. Like why do you do anything? And if you never spent time reflecting on it, that's really normal because most people don't, right? Most people, unless they have a mentor, father, mother, somebody who's basically like, hey, like, why do you want to do anything? We just go to the next thing, in our lives, the next step of, dopamine release, right? It could be social media. It could be like, well, I guess I'm supposed to get this next thing. So I'm supposed to get this job, I guess. And everybody does it backwards, right? So they do, okay, what major am I going to pick? How am I going to go graduate with that major? And then why am I doing this? And the answer is usually money, I guess. Most people don't know why, right? And there's nothing wrong with money. I think money's like a fuel, it's the more money that you have, the more people that you can help, but I think the purpose needs to be lined up with helping people. So why do you do what you do, right? That's the big question. And the simplest way to kind of get your mindset in the right quadrant of your brain, because we think logically oftentimes, and in order to figure out your purpose, you actually have to get slightly emotional about it. If you're not slightly emotional, then it's not going to mean anything to you. So the question I always ask to young people is, if you were hovering over your funeral in spiritual form, it's your funeral, and you have a son or daughter, you have the most important person in your life talking about your life. What do you want them to have said? Who you were, how you lived, and why you did stuff. And if you're like not sure, just think for a second, what do you not want to be? What do you not want to stand for? And if you don't want to be a liar, a cheat, lazy, it's like obviously you're going to do you want to start embodying the opposites of those things, for example, right? And there's certain jobs that line up, right? So if you want to be a good dad, you want to pick a career that's going to allow you to show up to your kids' baseball games, for example, you want to create a job, entrepreneurially, that allows that to happen. If that's not important to you, that's fine. No judgment there. It doesn't matter. But point is that there's ways and things that you want to do in your life, and there's careers and certain jobs or businesses that you can own, work with, that will either allow that to happen or it will be in conflict. So you find the industry that's not going to conflict with your purpose.
Yeah, that's really good. almost just from like what you've told me, just to dive deeper into that question, do you think it's more important for someone that just graduated college to first find out who they are themselves before looking to a career? Because that kind of goes with the purpose that you have and like what your mission is. So do you think it's more important for them to
Yeah.
first ask the question, who am I?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's not a simple answer, that's for sure. I'm a big
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis fan. I would recommend a bunch of his books, but the first book that I read, and I was lucky because I went to a church and they had this class where you go through this thing called Strength Finders. Now, by no means is this going to solve all your problems, but for me, it was my first stepping stone, so I'll share it. I took this test, $25, $30. There's like 100, 200 questions, whatever it was. But in Strength Finders test, you get a top 5 and a top 11. Well, there's only like 5 people in the world who have the same, or maybe it's 11. There's only like 5 to 11 people who have the same top 5 strengths as you in that order. And then there's no one with the same top 11 strengths in that order in the world, which is really good. And so that's like the best personality test I've ever taken. So my top strengths were restorative, learner, communication, and then positivity, right? So I'm an idealist. I like seeing things grow. I like seeing things be restored. That's why, I have a propensity to philanthropic, endeavors, wanting to help people. The purpose behind me doing stuff is to help people. That's it. I don't want the personal, make me look great. I actually am a believer that there's a point where you really shouldn't spend over a certain amount on a house, because what's the point? It's an object,
Absolutely.
That's where I kind of come from. So I would do something like that, because learning that I was restorative really aligned with all the things I was interested in. I used to play this old video game. I don't know if you know what it is. You know what Rome Total War is? Did you ever play that?
No, not quite.
This
I'm not
is the
familiar with that.
geekiest game you could ever play. But I enjoyed that game because you're like over an empire and you're building up an empire from scratch over and over and over again.
Okay.
And it's so funny, when I'm an adult now, 25 years old, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm starting things from scratch over and over again. It's super enjoyable to me.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that I'm restorative means that since I enjoy freedom and creativity to build things, it's not really the perfect, corporate factory worker. So I knew long term that my goal shouldn't be to get up the company ladder to presidents, because I'm just going to be working on something that's already here, right? And that doesn't mean go reinvent the wheel. There's good partnerships, but find where you can help uniquely.